Thank you so much for joining and welcome to the national engagement event, one of the many organized by the project NATI00NS to support the launch of the EU's mission, A Soil Deal for Europe. The mission aims to lead the transition towards healthy soil. It does so by, among other, putting in place an effective network of 100 living labs and lighthouses to co-create knowledge, test solutions, demonstrate their value in real-life conditions. The EU set aside funding for the establishment of fully operational living labs across Europe. A new call open, and within which there are 2 topics to apply for funding to create living labs and lighthouses. We will see today that actually we will have a presentation of also the other topics, but we will first focus on the 2 topics to create the soil health living labs and lighthouses, and then we will also see the details of the other topics. But this is your chance to be part of the submission of a proposal. So NATI00NS exists to facilitate the 2024 submissions of an application for the creation of soil health living labs. In the first half of the year of 2023, we organized 42 events similar to this one, in alignment with last year's calls, and 5 proposals for creating solutions for soil health in living labs were selected for funding. 1 on the carbon farming topic and 4 on bottom-up topic, where applicants could select on which soil health challenges they were focusing. So NATI00NS exists to support you with your application this year. And so let's see now, we go to the next slide, some just housekeeping rules before entering into the details. So we would like to also support in some way the exchange and the networking at national level. So we would like to share the names and the institution and the email addresses of the participants. In case you don't want this, you can write to us. We will take photos during the event for communication and dissemination purposes. If you find yourself in a picture you would like to remove, you can also write to info@nations.eu. And if you've given the consent during the registration form to receive updates from NATI00NS and or to receive information from other initiatives related to EU soil missions, you have the right to withdraw your consent, again, writing to us. And to conclude, this event is recorded, so that can also be published on the website of NATI00NS, and other participants who couldn't attend today can rewatch the video. We go to the next slide, and this event, during this event, we offer the translation, the live translation in German and French. So if you're not familiar with this option, you can look at the bottom of the screen, and you can search for the interpretation button, where you can select the language you would like to hear. So German, French, or English. And in case you hear also some noises, you can mute the regional audio to hear only the translation that you have selected. And you can also do so if you're following us with your mobile phone, tapping on the ellipsis icon and select the languages that you would like to hear. Let's go to the next slide. So from today's event until your submissions, many steps needs to be taken. We have summarized the process in 4 phases. The end goal, a submission for a successful submissions required a solid effort in the preceding phases. So these phases are focused on identification of your local soil health challenges objective, and the linkages with the soil mission objectives, forming a living lab and forming a consortium. To support the support of these 4 phases starts today, although with an emphasis in the early phases. Today, we provide you with with the background of the soil mission. We introduce the notions of living labs and how this can be the solution for promoting healthy soil. And we give a short introduction to some key points of this year topic. We will also have the chance to get some knowledge from the other topics and of the soil mission calls and the specific requirements. And for this, I thank Nancy Ramia from Luxinnovation, who supported us to organize this event, to reach to you, and she will provide you with this kind of information. And then, and maybe Nancy, you would like to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Dolinda. And I would like also to thank you all for joining us today. As Dolinda mentioned, I work at Luxinnovation as an advisor for European funding. So I work at the European funding team, and as a team, we serve as national contact points for European funding programs, but also delegates to the program committees. So I will just briefly explain what these 2 titles entail. So as the national contact point, we support all Luxembourgish applicants targeting Horizon Europe calls, including the calls for the missions and the soil mission. I am personally the national contact point for the EU missions, covering the soil mission, among others. So we provide assistance to the Luxembourgish actor throughout the entire submission process. So this includes helping them find the right call and partners to collaborate with for the specific topic. And we also use our connections with others, with other networks at the European level to connect them with potential collaborators. So we can simply begin by discussing with you your research needs to find the best fit for you, then map the relevant policies and provide feedback also on the proposals, as we do also proposal review. We might not really address the technical aspect and the scientific aspect because you are the expert, but we provide horizontal feedback. Additionally, we assist with legal and financial questions relating to the proposed setup, so please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any inquiry regarding the legal and financial aspects. Moreover, we serve as delegates to the program committees. So these are actually a forum where the EU Commission, together with member states, set up the work program and the call text for the different funding opportunities. So we ensure that that Luxembourg's interests are represented in the work program, as we do a series of consultation with Luxembourgish stakeholders to make sure that their keywords and their research priorities are reflected in the text of the different calls, so that they can secure funding for to support their research endeavors. So we offer a full range of services, and feel free to reach out to us anytime, as we can organize a meeting with you to guide you towards a successful Horizon Europe proposal for this program, but for others as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And yeah, we will also then hear from you the details of all the other topics of the soil mission. And then to conclude, just go back to the previous slide. To conclude this introduction, we will also have an engagement session. So if you want, you will have time to present yourself and present also which kind of collaboration are you looking for, and also what you can offer. So to conclude, we will also go through a pathway sketched in this graphic on the left, and explore which step to take and where to find relevant information and inspiration in order to apply. So aside from today's event, a range of events are organized and already available online. We will explain it also later at the end of this event. And the aim of this event is to facilitate networking across regions and countries, identifying stakeholders in some way to build up the knowledge on the Living Lab methodology. So our aim of today's event is that when you leave, you believe that soil health living labs are the way forward and that you cannot wait to get started your participation in and co-creation of soil health focused living labs. Let's go to the next slide. What is it all about? The EU has launched the mission A Soil Deal for Europe to provide for the gradual creation of 100 living labs and lighthouses in Europe to lead the transition towards healthy soil. We will get to the living labs and lighthouses in a bit, but let's first remind ourselves why healthy soils needs to be promoted. Next slide. Life on Earth depends on soil health. Soil is the basis of 95% of our food, not to forget all timber we harvest and use. Healthy soil provide additional essential ecosystem services such as clean water and great habitats for biodiversity. There are major carbon reservoirs which help slow the onset of climate change while making us more resilient to extreme climatic events. Healthy soil are thus essential for all life-sustaining processes on Earth. In light of this, the mission has defined healthy soil as having the continued capacity to support ecosystem services. Often soil is taken for granted, yet soil is a fragile, non-renewable resource that needs to be carefully managed and kept safe for future generations. Next slide. Soil health is threatened globally because of a range of human activities, such as competition of land, intensive land use, production, consumption patterns, and many more. In Europe alone, about 2/3 of the soil is considered unhealthy. And these do not even include an uncertain percentage of soil unhealthy due to poorly quantified pollution issues. Such unsustainable human activities are often compounded by a lack of understanding and education. Degraded soil lose their capacity to act as carbon stores. They lose their capacity to filter and store contaminants, thereby releasing pollutants such as heavy metals and residues of pesticides that may end up in the groundwater and enter the food chain and pose a threat to food safety. The process of soil degradation can lead to a collapse of landscape and ecosystems, making society more vulnerable to extreme weather events, food insecurity, and contamination, and/or political instability. The costs associated with soil degradation in EU exceed 50 billion euro per year. Next slide. So as part of EU soil strategy for 2030, a soil monitoring law has been proposed to ensure a level playing field among member states, as well as high level of environmental and health protection. The soil monitoring law is aimed at providing a legal framework that helps protecting and restoring soil and ensuring that soil is used sustainably. The long-term objectives of the proposed directive is to have all soil across the EU in healthy condition by 2050, as outlined in the soil strategy. On the 5th of July 2023, adopted the European Commission, the part of the EU where Ursula von der Leyen currently is president, the soil monitoring law. General procedure is that the law will first be implemented if it is passed by the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union, also known as the Council of Ministers. Both provides options and suggestions, amendments, after which the European Commission draft a second version of the proposed law. This can go up to 3 drafts. So the European Parliament adopted its position at first reading on the 10th of April, and the position of the Council is still unknown. The soil monitoring law, as it has been sent for review to the European Council and the European Parliament, aims to address key soil threats in the EU, such as erosion, floods, landslide, loss of soil organic matter, salinization, contamination, compaction, sealing, as well as loss of soil biodiversity. The soil monitoring law has 3 major objectives, which are in synergy with the European climate law: monitoring and assessment of soil health, sustainable soil management, contaminated sites. Let's go to the next slide. So in more in detail, the objectives, so as a first point, the objective on monitoring and assessment of soil health is to arrange for a solid and coherent monitoring framework for all soils across the EU. So member states can identify degraded soils to take targeted measure and regenerate these. The objectives on contaminated sites implied that member states are requested to identify potentially contaminated sites, to investigate the risk, and to address unacceptable risk for human health and environment. This contributes to reaching a toxic-free environment by 2050. And lastly, the soil monitoring law will make sustainable soil management the norm. Member states will have to define which practices should be implemented by soil management and which should be banned because they cause soil degradation. The mission soil is thus important for this implementation of soil monitoring law, notably through its funding for soil living labs as places to create and test solutions for soil health. Let's go to the next slide. So namely, the 100 living labs and lighthouses that the EU mission, A Soil Deal for Europe, aims to establish by 2030 are real-life setting places for on-the-ground experiment and can help identify and showcase which practices are locally successful. And next slide. The mission A Soil Deal for Europe is 1 out of 5 missions. This one is in recognition of the importance of soil and the pressure soil function are under. Generally, EU missions are new ways to bring concrete solutions to great challenges. The soil mission particularly is created to lead the transition towards healthy soil. It is also at the heart of the EU Green Deal, which is the package of policy initiatives to overcome threats by climate change and environmental degradation. The benefits of the European Green Deal provide, among other, fresh air, clean water, healthy soil, biodiversity, and healthy and affordable food. The mission, the soil mission, is aiming for 100 living labs and lighthouses across all land uses and throughout Europe. These living labs and lighthouses will accelerate the creation and uptake of solutions to meet specific objectives, to tackle specific soil issues. Soil health can be improved in many places, and the mission addresses all different land-based systems, so agriculture, forestry, natural, urban, post, and industrial. Some soil health challenges occur currently independent from the other land use type. And then the mission really encourages a strong stakeholders and citizen engagement to accelerate the co-creation, the uptake of solutions. Living Labs boost open science and interactive participatory innovation. A collaboration across professions and places, bottom-up instead of top-down. A successful mission requires co-implementation by land manager, regions, businesses, researchers, policymakers, citizens, international partners. And in other words, the soil mission is cross-scale, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary, where a strong social science components fills knowledge gaps and develops solutions for soil health and for the continuous provision of ecosystem services. Next slide. The mission is built up on 4 building blocks, which each address a hurdle to overcome. It is a bit technical, but it really put the relevance and the importance of Living Labs in perspective. So the research and innovation programs builds the knowledge base for soil health, and it supports 2 ecosystem services to overcome still existing knowledge gaps and insufficient access to data and knowledge. Then Living Labs and Lighthouses accelerate the creation and uptake of solutions to soil threats, which addresses problems with adaptation of research results and technical solutions to local circumstances and land manager needs. We will go into more details about Living Lab and Lighthouses just in a bit. A robust soil monitoring framework at EU level and at the level of member states tracks the progress of the soil mission on specific objectives, which amends a lack of incapacities for monitoring and soil health. And the final building blocks on soil literacy, communication, and citizen engagement addresses the insufficient awareness and know-how on soil health-related matters. So these 4 building blocks are all together needed to foster a transition towards healthy soil. The soil mission goals is to create 100 living labs and lighthouses, and it includes 8 specific soil health soil health objectives that you can see here in the slide. So reduce desertification, conserve and increase soil organic carbon stocks, stop soil sealing and increase reuse of urban soil, reduce soil pollution and enhance restoration, prevent erosion, improve soil structure and enhance soil biodiversity, reduce the EU global footprint on soil, improve soil literacy in society. We go, just to give you a heads up, while the soil mission includes these 8 objectives in the topics related to living labs and lighthouses, the living labs and lighthouses established within a consortium should not necessarily focus on all the objectives, but we will see this in a bit. So we go to the next slide. So reduced desertification is needed to help achieve land degradation neutrality and start restoration. The mission baseline highlights that 25% of land in southern, central, and eastern Europe is at risk of desertification. Conserve and increase soil organic carbon stock is a twofold objective. On one hand, this objective aims to reverse the trend of declining soil carbon losses from cultivated land to an increased trend, and is particularly addressing soils within the declining and low carbon stocks. On the other hand, these objectives applies the peatland and wetland that can be a natural CO2 sink. The third objective is to stop soil sealing and increase the reuse of urban soil, contributes to meet the target to no net land by 2050. And the objectives reduce soil pollution to enhance restoration primarily relates to the use of pesticides and fertilizers, the reduction of nutrient losses from soil and release the microplastics to soils and to halt secondary salinization. Water erosion is a problem, particularly on but not solely on agricultural soil. According to the mission baseline, 70% of the area of land with unsustainable erosion rates is under agricultural land use, but the remaining 30% is used otherwise. Improved soil structure aims to enhance habitats quality for soil biota and crops. Here, one can think of issues of soil compaction, among other agriculture and forestry land use. The seventh objectives reduce the EU global print on soils, aims to establish the EU global footprint in line with international standards and to reduce the impact on EU's food, timber, biomass import on land degradation elsewhere without creating trade-offs. Finally, increasing soil literacy is to increase the awareness of the societal role and value of soil amongst EU citizens, including in key stakeholders groups like policymakers, and through which citizens' involvement in soil and land-related issues are improved at all levels. The aim is that all practitioners and stakeholders have access to appropriate information and training to improve skills and to support the adoption of sustainable land management practices. As mentioned, living labs and lighthouses established within missions, the mission do not need to focus on all objectives necessarily, but living labs should focus on clear reasons on understanding which objectives they want to focus on. And then let's go to the final slides of this presentation. Finally, in this image of the mission implementation plan, you see how living labs benefit from and contribute to all operational objectives in the mission. Living labs are really the core element of the mission to accelerate the creation and uptake of solutions for healthy soil across different settings and as well in different geographical and social economic context. Living labs and lighthouses complement the research and innovation program with knowledge, innovation, research questions and from practitioners in real-life settings, respond to local needs. Living labs are also platform to test and adapt scientific knowledge, frameworks, and methods of real-life settings. The living labs and lighthouses use a soil health monitoring framework to assess the impact of innovations and of their practices on soil health and ecosystems. Moreover, they contribute to the testing and validation of monitoring techniques and approaches. Finally, the living labs and lighthouses are ideal places for citizens' engagement and for activities and practices to improve awareness and knowledge of soils. So this long, but we hope comprehensive introduction is concluded. We will also have time for questions just in a bit. So you feel free to use the chat to share your questions. And let's now dive into the topic of what living labs are and what lighthouses are. And for this, I welcome my colleague Mar Illa from ENoLL as well to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Linda. So yeah, as Linda mentioned, we're gonna focus on the soil health living labs and lighthouses. So we are gonna dive into the definitions and structure of living labs and lighthouses in the context of the 2024 calls, and we'll provide some examples. Next slide, please. Thank you. So soil health living labs are collaborative initiatives to co-create knowledge and innovation. Soil health living labs are defined as user-centered, place-based, and transdisciplinary. They are multi-stakeholders, so they involved all relevant partners in co-design, testing, monitoring, and evaluation of solutions. They use real-life settings to accelerate adoption, and they contain several sites. This can be farms, forest exploitation, city parks, etc. And they are at a regional or sub-regional level. On the other hand, soil health lighthouses are defined as places for demonstration of solutions, training, and communication that are exemplary in their performance in terms of soil health improvement. They showcase good practices and upscale solutions. They are places for demonstrations, training, networking, and communication. They adopt of sustainable practices by inspiring land users. And lighthouses are single sites, so one farm, one forest exploitation, one industrial site, or one urban city green area, for example. Moving on, the mission implementation plan defines a set of criteria for the selection of the setup of living labs in the context of the soil mission. The criteria are classified across 4 main areas. These are aims, activities, participants, and contexts. So as for the aims, it refers to innovation, co-creation, and formal learning, the contribution to societal challenges, and improving of soil health and related ecosystem services. Activities are required to have co-creation, co-development, and experimentation of innovations improving soil health, research on impacts and other innovative practices on ecosystems, networking and knowledge exchange, and demonstration, in particularly in the case of the lighthouses. Participants, as for participants, living labs should include public and private people partnership, real users, so soil managers connected with broad array of stakeholders and decision makers, and demonstration, so the wider public, policy area, EIP, and relevant networks. And finally, the context refers to the inclusion of multiple disciplines, methods, and dimensions, place-based approach and real-life context, so real farm, forest, or urban sites, robust scientific setup of ecosystem assessment, and openness, communication, and dissemination. As for the lighthouses in parallel, the criteria focus on exemplary performance and potential of inspiration with soil health and related ecosystem services. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we can see that there are more and more parties that are facing barriers that should be addressed. And some examples are language barriers, complex challenges that cannot be solved by a single stakeholder, lack of trust between stakeholders, different goals and approaches, lack of evaluation of practical solutions, etc. In such contexts, living labs are particularly important because they are the environment where we can overcome these types of barriers and start working together. So what can we expect from living labs? Living labs focus on a joint value of co-creation, rapid prototyping, testing, and scaling up of innovations and businesses. Within the open innovation ecosystem, living labs use iterative feedback processes for quick prototyping testing so that processes and projects results can quickly enter the market. Cooperative in a living lab will help across all actors to become inspired by each other, learn to think out of the box, better understand each other, accept different perspectives from different stakeholders while aiming for the same goals, work together instead of side by side, contribute to faster, validated, and more scalable solutions, and more. So living labs can tackle many of the collaboration barriers. Next slide, please. But what are the key elements of a living lab? Living labs are carried out in a real life setting. co-creating with large and multidisciplinary sets of stakeholders and including land managers and owners from the very first moment. Through this, Living Labs support the rapid scale-up of innovations for technical and economic impact, but also help better achieve a broad social impact. Next slide, please. So to ensure their correct application, it is important to consider the following elements during setting up of a Living Lab. These are Living Labs should be places of co-creation, co-design, co-implementation, along validation. They are participatory, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary research. An innovation approach should be at the center of the Living Lab. Living Lab should identify business models to ensure the sustainability of the Living Lab in the long term. So soil health Living Labs are place-based and are collaborations between multiple actors. These Living Labs operate at a regional or sub-regional level and coordinate experiences on several sites with a regional or sub-regional area or working landscapes. A lighthouse can be one of the many experimentation sites of a Living Lab to the extent that it constitutes an exemplary performance in terms of soil health improvement. A lighthouse can also be a high-performance site not included in a Living Lab. The table on the right, as you can see, recaps this and compares and contrasts the scale, types of expected activities, and the desired performance in soil health improvement. So soil health Living Labs can be applied at different scales, regional or sub-regional. Always take into consideration the common aspects that bring the Living Labs together. Living Labs need to tackle local soil health needs and consider the local context to address specific soil challenges and specific mission objectives. For this, Living Lab areas could cut across regional or even national borders where this could make sense for the soil condition point of view. Next slide, please. So as we saw, the soil health Living Labs can be applied at different scales. This image displays the regional scale of a Living Lab. On the map on the right side, the common soil challenges are highlighted by the green colored area. In this example, we can see that the Living Labs and its sites are located in the green area that represents a specific soil challenge with the regional borders and targeting the whole region. But Living Labs can also focus on sub-regional level, focusing on specific areas within regional borders. Next slide, please. But as we said, Living Labs can also cut across administrative and geographical borders. In this last example, 2 or more adjacent regions within the same national border are affected by common soil health challenges, which are displayed in the map with this green color. And therefore, the Living Lab can be operating across regions to address the common and local soil health challenges. Similarly, perfect. When duly justified based on the conditions and in its manageable form of an administration point of view, Living Labs can also cut across national borders. In this example, 2 adjacent regions of different countries are affected by common soil health challenges, represented on the right map by the green color. When this can be addressed only through cross-border collaboration, a Living Lab can also be operating across different countries. So within the Living Labs topics on soil health, each proposal is expected to have one consortium, including 4 to 5 Living Labs, with their respective partners, multiple sites, and lighthouses, if they are already identified. According to the mission implementation plan, Living Labs should involve 10 to 20 experimentation sites. However, depending on the specific context, so the land use types, the soil health challenges addressed, etc., applicants can propose Living Labs with fewer experimental sites. Please consider that the main common element bringing Living Labs together in a project is their shared objective to collaborate on soil health issues relevant to the regions where they are operating. This common element and any other commonality, thus, is needed to be explained very clearly in the proposal. Proposal should describe a rationale for cooperation across the various Living Labs and explain the work undertaken will contribute to one or more of the mission-specific soil objectives. So in line with this rationale, we can go to the next slide. There are different ways that we can address common aspects within the Living Labs in projects. Note that these examples are going to be provided are not intended to be exhaustive. In one hand, living labs can focus on the same mission soil-specific objectives and different land use types like agriculture, industrial, and other land use types, which we'll explain better later. Another option is that living labs within the consortium focus on different soil health issues affecting the same land use across Europe. And this third last example is when living labs can focus on the same objectives and land use, but they have different focuses, for instance, different local needs. Finally, we would like to stress the importance, we can go with the next slide, of living labs being set up at the regional or sub-regional level, taking into consideration the local context where the work of the living lab will be carried out. It is essential to always highlight the properly present in applications the common aspects within the sites of the living labs, as well as within the various living labs in the projects, detailing how the coordination of activities across living labs will be established. Well, as we saw before, cross countries living labs can be justified. This application has limits. As you can see in the image, it is important to prevent the cross-regional unjustified scope. In the case of a remote site, it is important to explain the management and involvement in the co-creation activities. Following the soil mission, NATI00NS considers 4 main soil health living labs, which are agricultural living labs, urban living labs, forestry living labs, and industrial living labs. In NATI00NS, we also provide several fact sheets on the EU mission soil, living labs and lighthouses for soil health that can better help you to get a proper understanding on the living labs calls for the topics and the specifics of the living labs. We invite you to take a look at this fact sheet 1 about the funding opportunities. There are also fact sheets for the different land use types in agriculture land use type and forestry land use, and also in urban land use and post-industrial land use type. So an essential characteristic of the living lab methodology is the user-centric approach. This approach requires the involvement of all relevant actors and end users. In line with the nature of the living labs, proposals must implement the multi-actor approach. The list of actors will vary depending on the features specific to each living lab and can involve different types of actors such as researchers, landowners or land managers, industry, public administration representatives of civil society, and others. Care should be taken to describe the capabilities and roles of the different partners involved, depending on their area of expertise. The quadruple helix, which is an extension of the typical public-private partnership, is a model to map the usual stakeholders in living labs. The specific actors involved in a living lab will change depending on the focus, objective, and context of the living lab. So the quadruple helix model, it involves representatives from all sectors of society, more specifically the academia, which can, for example, be universities, research and development centers, the public sector, which can be government and regional development agencies and policymakers, as well as public sector in general, industry, which can consist of businesses of all sizes and business clusters and associations, and the fourth actor of the quadruple helix is the citizen and civil society, which includes all end users such as consumers and their associations. Next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, across the living labs can vary depending on the focus, objective, and context. That is why we briefly will go over the different stakeholders per land use type. So when it comes to industry stakeholders, agricultural living labs deal with farmers and landowners, agribusiness companies like agriculture engineers, manufacturers, cooperatives, supermarkets, etc. For the urban soil type, landowners and managers, building and construction professionals, and GIS specialists and urban planners are some of the examples. Regarding forestry, the industry stakeholders are landowners and forestry managers, forest companies and forest owner associations, and other industry partners. And finally, for the industrial living labs, we have industrial landowners, land developers, environmental consultants, and SMEs. So for the government and public sectors, the main stakeholders are in general authorities at a local, regional, and national level, as well as land managers and landowners. Regarding the urban living labs, relevant participants are public authorities and private agencies, health authorities like epidemiologists and environmental managers. For the forestry, regulators, governmental organizations, and forestry-related agencies are also relevant. And regarding the industrial, it is important to mention city and regional administration, environmental protection offices, and spatial planners that might be benefit from this living lab focus on regeneration. In terms of the academia, the main stakeholders are researchers, universities, and research institutes. As you can see, we have provided some examples of the academia stakeholders per land use type. And finally, regarding citizens, civil society, and users, the main stakeholders are NGOs, citizen groups, and local, regional, or national movements. For the agricultural living labs, the focus is on NGOs that deal with topics like nature conservation and consumers. The relevant stakeholders for the urban living labs are inhabitants of the area, civic groups like associations, loosely organized groups like local businesses and retailers, and informal interest groups of the communities or nature conservation groups. Regarding forestry, it is important to mention that the NGOs and the representatives working in nature conservation protection and organizations. In terms of industrial living labs, it is relevant to mention citizen organizations, and environmental organizations. So now we're going to go into the several examples of the funded soil health living labs, which applied last year's call. This first example focuses on enhancing soil health in the Mediterranean olive croplands. This living lab is part of a project consisting of 5 living labs focusing on agriculture soil and 4 mission-specific objectives, which are Objective 4, reduce soil pollution and enhance restoration. Objective 5, prevent erosion. Objective 6, improve soil structure to enhance soil biodiversity. And Objective 8, improve soil literacy in society. The project focuses on agricultural soil use for permanent crops, such as grapevines, olives, and fruit crops. In the project, not all 4 mission-specific objectives will be focus of each living lab, but within the project, at least 3 living labs will address the same mission-specific objectives. The living lab is committed to tackling soil health challenges in the Mediterranean regions dominated by permanent crops, particularly olive trees. It is situated in Spain and spanning across 2 NUTS 3 territories as per the European Classification of Territorial Units for Statistics. It includes 15 different experimental sites and 5 potential lighthouses, which are to be selected. Financial support to third parties will facilitate the integration of 1 to 2 additional living lab experimental sites into the living lab. This example is led by a university entity, and the living lab encompasses 11 distinct local actors in the project, including industries, so olive production and marketing, public administrations, which are local and agricultural administrations, representatives of the civil society, which are social and cultural life, and research-related entities, so research institutes and universities. It receives support from project partners, mainly universities and industries, and they are not located within the living lab for various aspects such as governance, long-term operation, formulation of business models, utilization and transferability of solutions, impact monitoring, communication, and engagement. The cooperation with other living labs in the same project is based on a shared focus on the same type of agricultural land use, which are the permanent crops, and the mutual pursuit of similar missions-specific objectives. This living lab targets 3 soil issues: erosion, pollution, and desertification. The rock terrain characterized by the steep slope, traditionally tillage methods, and sparse vegetation cover exacerbates soil erosion, which is a primary concern. Conventional agricultural practices, including pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizer use, pose significant risk for the soil contamination. Finally, this region addresses water scarcity and mitigates water stress, essential for preventing the soil desertification. The Living Lab aims to co-create soil health solutions with anticipated practices, including the integration of organic matter, compost, and biochar hydrofilters to promote sustainable soil management. Going on the second example, which focuses on enhancing soil health in the Western European farmlands. This Living Lab is part of a project consisting of 4 living labs focusing on agricultural soil and 2 mission-specific objectives. These are Objective 6, to improve soil structure to enhance soil biodiversity, and Objective 8, improve soil literacy in society. The project addresses a spectrum of agricultural land uses, including arable land, permanent grassland, and permanent crops such as grapevines, olives, and various fruit crops. In the project, the mission 6 and 8 will be the only focus of each Living Lab. The Living Lab is committed to tackling soil health challenges in farmlands in the region of Western Europe, characterized by the extensive arable land and permanent grassland, like I just mentioned. It is situated in Ireland and spanning in a single NUTS 3 territories as per the European Classification of Territorial Units for Statistics. The Living Lab will include 11 experimental sites, 2 of which have already been confirmed, and the Living Lab also has plans to establish a lighthouse. Led by a university entity, the Living Lab encompasses 14 distinctive local actors in the project. 5 of these entities, including landowners, managers, representatives of the civil society, and other types of actors at the regional development organization, are directly funded by the project. In addition, 3 landowners or managers, 3 industries, and 3 public administrations are involved. The project intends to use financial support to third parties to incorporate into the Living Lab approximately 10 additional Living Lab partners for their activities. The Living Lab receives supports from the project partners, mainly universities and industries, which are not located within the Living Lab for various aspects. This includes the development of an environmental to foster co-creation of knowledge, learning, experiments, and research activities, the governance and sustainability of the Living Lab, the monitoring of soil health, scientific and technological support for soil health practices, and communicating and dissemination of the results. The cooperation with other Living Labs in the same project is based on a shared focus on the mutual pursuit of the 2 objectives, 6 and 8, and on agricultural soil. It targets soil health challenges related to soil structure and biodiversity. A key challenge is to improve the soil drainage while substantially reducing fertilizer use. This reduction is intended to support biodiversity by minimizing disturbances such as soil compaction and improving soil structure. Furthermore, addressing the region's relatively low soil organic matter level is crucial. Increasing soil organic matter will not only improve soil biodiversity, but also enhance soil structure and water retention capacity. It aims to co-create soil health solutions while anticipating practices, including the use of high-quality inputs such as biochar and biobine slurry, along with crop diversification and cover. Next slide, please. So many initiatives are already working on the field of soil in Europe, adopting the co-creation methods in real-life environments for improving soil health. The soil mission support projects started to map several soil initiatives, regardless of their level of readiness towards the mission soil criteria for Soil Health Living Lab. The map that you can see on the screen is now continued and explained under the Prep Soil project, which we invite you to take a look and register your Living Lab or Lighthouse initiatives. The map can be accessed through the prepsoil.eu website or at the exact link shown on the slide. And I believe that's the end of my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much. So we will just conclude this part before taking the questions so we can enter into the details of the two topics which will fund the Living Labs this year. Okay, so maybe you can share the screen again. So we will look at the specific details, the criteria of the two topics related to creation of Living Labs. Okay, so following up, we are going to focus on, just a second. So what are basically the details of the topics that will fund Living Labs and Lighthouses this year? Just on a side note, we will give you some general information, but just taking in consideration that the sole official source of reference shall remain the 2023 and 2025 mission work program officially published by the European Commission on the 17th of April this year. And we will, of course, share with you the links of all this material. So next slide. In NATIONS, the project NATIONS will support specifically the application for the two topics. The number one is entitled Co-Creating Solution for Soil Health in Living Labs. And the number two entitled Living Labs in Urban Areas for Healthy Soil. The deadline for submission of application within this work program is the 8th of October for these two topics. It's the 8th of October 2024 at 5 p.m. Brussels time. The submission is the type single stage, meaning that a full proposal is to be submitted during the application. The submission takes place electronically via the funding and tenders portal submission system. So paper submissions are not possible. And both topics are research and innovation actions, meaning that any actor is covered by 100% funding. Each application should include 4 to 5, as we saw before, 4 to 5 or more living labs that address the same or several land use type in at least 3 different member states and or associated countries. So next slide. Okay, the topic number one, the first topic is to set up Living Lab to work together on one or more soil health challenges and contribute to one or more mission soil objectives. The indicative budget for the first topic is 36 million euro, and it is expected that 3 projects will be funded. Initiatives focusing on Living Labs exclusively focus on urban areas are excluded from the topic number 1, as a dedicated topic is opened in the same call, that is the topic number 2. The focus of the Living Labs under the topic number 2 should always remain on urban soils. By doing so, the following objectives, specific objectives, are particularly supported. The objectives number 3, no net soil sealing and increase the reuse of urban soils. The number 4, reduce soil pollution and enhance restoration. Number 5, prevent erosion. And number 8, increase soil literacy in society across member states. However, it cannot be excluded that even other objectives of the mission are touched upon while working on urban soil. and the indicative budget for the topic number 2 is 12 million, as it is expected that 3 projects will be funded. And for this specific topic, only 1 project is expected to be funded. Okay, so to conclude what it is expected to include in the application, and for these 2 topics, the proposals are also invited to include in the application the collaboration with the soil project. And we go to the next slide. Okay, sorry, I forgot one information. Sorry for that. For the application of this, application of these 2 topics, there is a new table, a new template that it is provided that the Commission is published, and you can see that this template aims to gather all the key aspects of the living labs that will be part of the project. So we invite you to take a look on the links that we will send you, and to use the new template that the Commission has provided. Next slide. Yeah, so as I was saying, the living labs and the lighthouses are invited to collaborate with the soil and the soil startup project. And this is important for you to know in case you're willing to apply, and to make sure to include this collaboration in your proposals. So let's see what it means. We know that the mission aims to set up 100 soil health living labs and lighthouses. And since the mission has been launched, various activities has been developed to support living labs. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so the first one is prep soil. We saw a little bit before, and we will see also later that prep soil, among many other preparatory activities, identified soil regional needs across Europe. So mapped all soil living labs based on improved taxonomy, and also identify a set of model business plans and services to help the scale up of living labs. Then NATi00NS, in parallel, NATi00NS that is hosting this event, focusing on engaging and support applicants on the first waves of living labs calls under the soil mission, and so is providing dedicated services to support applicants. And then soil. Soil is the framework partnership agreement coordinated by ENoLL that aims to create an overarching support for the soil health living labs and lighthouses that will be funded. So we go to the next slide. Soil aims to set up a support structure for both soil health living labs and lighthouses funded under the mission, and it will be implemented through different projects. The first one, the one that is now started, is the project Soil Startup. Let's go to the next slide. The soil startup. So while soil aims to set up and run an effective, agile, transdisciplinary, diffuse, open, and fair one-stop shop structure to coordinate, support, and enlarge and promote the network of 100 living labs and lighthouses funded under the soil mission, the soil startup project, the one that is now active and running, aims to co-design and launch the soil one-stop structure. So to coordinate and support the funded living labs. And this will be done in collaboration with the first waves of soil health living labs and lighthouses that will be funded. And we go to the next slide. We won't enter into details today of all the details of the project, but what is important for you to know is that the soil startup project will is offering several services to support the soil health living labs and lighthouses, from training to guidelines, monitoring support, enhanced collaboration and exchange among the living labs, visibility, and also matchmaking and marketplace opportunities. We go to the next slide. And what is it important is that in order to implement these activities, it is necessary the collaboration of the soil health living labs and lighthouses. So it is important that in the application, a part of the of time, and of course part of the budget is also allocated to foreseen the collaboration of with soil startups. So it is important that the living labs will share information, will share the feedbacks and the needs, which kind of training they need to improve and to make sure that the living lab is running and is successful. So let's remind this also when you write the application. And so to conclude, what should you consider in your journey to being part of or lead the submission of an application that will of the topics of creating living labs? So first of all, you need to identify your local soil health challenges and relate this challenge to one or more soil mission objectives. Then you need to form or join a local living labs. The living labs is formed of several sites and at regional or sub-regional level, which may differ in land use, but of which the rationale of collaboration among the different living labs and the sites is clear. With the future living lab, you reach out to potential collaborators to form a network of living labs and to create also a consortium. It is again also this stage. It is important to define the rationale and the reason of collaboration among the different partners. So with this consortium, you work out the project application, and there are a number of tools and documents accessible for you to consult and be inspired. And this also, we will talk about it a little bit later when we share with you other additional material that we have produced to support you in the application. So and then when your application is ready, you're free to share it. So this is in some way the main information for these two topics. Now it's time for you to share maybe some questions or comments. Please raise your hand if you have some questions or comments or needs of clarification. You will receive anyhow the slides, and the video will be also published on the website. Then there is also Nancy here in case who can also support you later on when you are actually planning more details and you're planning the application. There will be also time later for questions in case you need. In the meantime, I believe if there are no questions, we can maybe then go to the next presentation, and then also after this second presentation about the other topics within the soil mission calls, you can still share with us any questions related to the whole presentation we shared. Okay, let's now move on then, and now we will leave the floor, to Nancy Ramia from Luxinnovation, who will give us an overview of the other of the mission calls and the specific requirements for the other topics. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mar and Dolinda, for your insightful presentation on the mission soil scope, but also on the first two calls around the living labs and lighthouses. As you mentioned, I will focus now in this presentation on providing you with an overview of the other 7 topics within the mission soil, and these topics are more top-down topics where calls only accept proposal for projects that addresses specific thematic subjects. So in the next slide, here you have the list of the 7 topics for funding specific proposals that address the different themes here listed. I would like here to mention that the same rules that apply for the Horizon Europe Classic program apply for the Mission Soil program. So in terms of course, the eligibility and what the participants should set up in order to participate. So it's open again to all legal entities, whether they are private or public, for-profit or non-profit organizations, including companies of all sizes. So from large, but also SMEs, and research and technology organization, university and associations. And for you to apply for these topics, you should set up a consortium that must be composed from at least 3 legal entities established in different member states or associated states. So as you can see, these 7 topics comprise a mix between research and innovation action. So these are projects that are positioned at the technology readiness level scale between 3 and 5. So if you are not familiar with the TRL, it means that these projects, so the research and innovation action, should develop and validate solutions, while the innovation action reach higher TRL levels where you need to scale up and demonstrate your developed solutions. I also have compiled for you the total budget available and the number of projects that are expected to be funded within each of these topics. And for some topics that I will present to you, you need also to foster a participatory approach. So you need really to like mention how your projects foster the co-creation and how you put on the same table different actors from different backgrounds, also including representatives from the civil society, environmental NGOs, and so on. So I will start in this next slide with the presentation of the topic number 3. So this one is really focused on soil erosion, because the soil erosion problem hasn't been addressed till now. And in the Horizon Europe project, it has been a long time since erosion projects have been proposed. Although soil erosion is an important issue at the European scale, because 25% of European lands are affected by unsustainable water erosion rates, and they are estimated at 2.5 tons per hectare per year. So this topic really focuses on this issue and would support financially projects that would establish dynamic monitoring systems to assess the status and the spatio-temporal changes of soil erosion. In the next slide, you will see all the details. So my colleagues previously mentioned that here each of the calls rely on or are built on a certain policy context. And as the title of the topic entails, this one will focus on the objective 5 of the mission soil, that is prevent erosion. So this is one of the 8 specific objectives of this mission, and it's also among the descriptors and indicators that are listed in the proposal of the soil monitoring law. And it's described particularly in the annex of this proposal of the soil monitoring law that indicates that the criterion for a healthy soil condition is that erosion shouldn't be exceeding 2 tons per hectare per year. It's also, as mentioned here in the slide, a context indicator for assessing the performance of the Common Agricultural Policy. And in addition to all of this, it's also an important indicator in the Sustainable Development Goals that the European Commission considers in their progress reports toward meeting these goals. And in particular, it's related to the SDG 2, so zero hunger, and SDG 15, life on land. And what these proposals are expected to address. So what are the expected outcomes that these proposals should meet? So first, the main aim is really to enhance the knowledge on the multi-process soil erosion dynamics. And when speaking about erosion, here we should take into account the different types of erosion. So it could be water erosion, wind erosion, among others. And it should address this soil erosion at the European level in different sites across Europe. It should also further validate some indicators that are already available on the soil loss by water and wind erosion. As I mentioned, at the continent scale, with, of course, inputs from the local and regional level, because this would be very important for shaping the policy making and the implementation of the previously mentioned policy and laws. It's also an important thing to mention that within your proposal, you should try to address that you will be tackling some management practices setup that would significantly reduce the erosion, and these would be recommendations that you would be afterwards willing to share within the community. You would need also to establish a robust monitoring network, so you would need to monitor erosion in different places in Europe, but also in different processes and scenarios, and develop ultimately a pan-European estimates of soil erosion. So in the next slide, you can find specific details about the scope of this topic, because when we speak about estimates, what we have now is long-term average estimates. So we are speaking here about 5-10 years average, but we want to go one step further here, not to have just the long-term average. We want here to have process-based models that would develop annual estimates for soil erosion. And this will reduce the uncertainty we have in the current model. The second point in the scope gives a particular focus to agricultural fields in which we can adopt and apply management practices you would set up within the context of the project. And you would, of course, try to tackle different processes in this context. And lastly, you should be also introducing new data sets focusing on land parcels identification systems, but you should also build on the existing data sets. So here you have some example. So you have also the land use and cover area frame survey, Lucas. It's a survey that provides harmonized comparable statistics on land use and land cover across the whole European territory. And you can also use data from Copernicus, that is the Earth observation component of the European Space Program. So the indicative budget available for this topic is a total of 11.5 million euros, and only one project will be funded in the context of this topic. And some important things to consider is ultimately by the end of the project, you should establish a network of stakeholders that would be capable of monitoring soil loss using the different established indicators. You would also develop a process-based models, a reliable one at the continental scale, and you would also need to quantify the impact of the management practices you would recommend. And the last point for this topic is to link it to the good agriculture and environmental condition. So here I'm referring to a set of European Union standards defined at national and regional level, aiming to achieve sustainable agriculture. So this was the overview for topic 3. Now we move to topic 4. So the topic 4 here focuses more on nitrogen fluxes and developing systems that would enable a quantification of these nitrogen fluxes to tackle uncertainties in European landscape. This topic is a research and innovation action as well. In the next slide, you can see the policy context that this topic was built on, because it would address the fourth objective of the soil mission, that is reducing soil pollution and enhancing restoration. But it also addresses indicators in the soil monitoring law, because you know that excess nutrient content in soil is also considered as an indicator of soil health. And here we look at the nitrogen quantification. And lastly, it is also linked to effective greenhouse gas mitigation strategy, because you all know that nitrogen cycling in soil also influences greenhouse gas emissions. So these are the policies you need to consider, you need to mention when writing the proposal. And your proposal must address all expected outcomes listed here. So it should, as the previous one, enhance the knowledge available around this topic, but also advance the comprehension of the mechanisms governing the nitrogen translocation from soil, including the emission, but also including the leaching from the subsurface into groundwater. You need also to aim setting up an assessment of improved nitrogen management and conservation strategies, and of course, try to implement these management practices with the aim to reduce the nitrogen losses from soil. So in the next slide, here you can see more, some specific details about the scope of this topic. And as I mentioned before, it's really within the context of the greenhouse gas mitigation strategy. We all know that nitrogen losses are highly episodic, and we need a better resolution of information regarding this subject. And data and observations are particularly lacking in the Mediterranean basin, so this is also to be considered. You need also to collect experimental data, of course, to improve the parameters, because one of the aim would be increasing the confidence of the prediction models. And you would need also to contribute to the development of nitrogen cycle based on different criteria. So climate change, but also the land use, different scenarios. The same for the topic, for the previous topic. The indicative budget for this topic is a total 11.5 million euro, and only one project for this topic will be funded. And here, yes, as previously mentioned, you need really to focus on employing advanced monitoring techniques. You need also to provide comprehensive estimation of the full nitrogen budget, considering the European level. And as we recommend for all other projects, you need to ensure that you have established an efficient collaboration with other projects working on this topic. And this is the first time for this mission. Here we encourage also including philanthropic organizations. Moving to the next topic number 5. This one is focused more on assessing soil health, but also pollinators. It is again a research and innovation action, so TRL 325. And in the next slide, you see here more details about the policy context for this specific call on pollinators. And here, of course, it would serve the objective 4, reducing soil pollution, objective 6, improving soil structure and enhancing habitat quality for soil growth and crops, and also improving literacy in the society. And soil literacy is served almost by all the topics, of course. In particular, this topic will focus also on building on the policy around the pollinators. It's also covered within the proposal of the soil monitoring law, and at a more global level, it would meet the Sustainable Development Goals, but also the Convention on the Biological Diversity, the CBD, of the UN Biodiversity Conference, COP15. The expected outcomes that needs to be addressed are the following. So, of course, when speaking about improving soil literacy, we speak about providing as output some knowledge and understanding about the biology and ecology of the species. And here you need to focus, of course, on ground nesting pollinators to remain in the scope of the soil. You need also to, as output, to provide a better understanding of the causes of decline of these insects and an overview of the various threats. And you need to also recommend some effective measures to tackle these losses. This was about, yes, topic 5, policy context and expected scopes. And if we move to the next slide, you have more information about what's in here. So this call will finance one project with a budget of 7.5 million euros. Of course, as mentioned before, the scope is around ground nesting pollinators. You need to develop monitoring methods, also considering the threats that would lead to diversity loss. You need also to take account the different soil conditions and also recommend mitigation practices for the remediation. And here some important elements to consider. As recommended for all the projects, you need to ensure a proper coordination with other EU-funded projects. And here I would like to highlight the fact that you can always reach out to us if you need a help in extracting previous projects having tackled such subjects. So we can provide you with one overview because we have access to the extensive databases. And you need also here to collaborate closely with the European Soil Observatory, but also other soil projects like SoilWise. And a possible cooperation with the living labs would be highly beneficial in the context of this topic. And as Mar and Dolinda mentioned before, the multi-actor approach for this topic specifically, it is a formal requirement. So I will define for you very briefly what is the multi-actor approach in the next slides. So for this proposal, you need to implement this approach, meaning that you need to involve at least researchers, but also landowners or land managers and representatives of civil society, notably in this context, of course, environmental NGOs. And why the Commission is really pushing to implement further this multi-actor approach, because the linear innovation model have proven to cause a slow uptake of the solutions developed because it lacks the practitioner's perspective, so the end users would be resistant to implementing the solution. While if you really try to foster a responsible research and innovation approach that is demand driven and more reliable, this will help you implement solutions with faster uptake that are relevant to the society. So for this multi-actor approach to be properly implemented in your proposal, and in the proposal, you need to really justify how your consortium represent the different actors that would be the end users of the solution. You need also to emphasize on the fact that you are fostering here a co-creation process. So what we propose is really suggesting some workshop activities that would involve landowners, people from various uh, backgrounds that would foster a more interesting exchange with the different perspectives involved. And you need, as I mentioned before, to involve the practitioners because we need their perspective in order to implement the project with the solutions that, with higher chances of a quick uptake. So in the next slides, I list for you the key requirements that you should meet for a proper implementation of this multi-actor approach. And this is really considered by the evaluators that would score your proposals. So you need first to indicate the different needs and challenges you would like to target, but also the opportunities for the end users that the proposed project provides. You need in the consortium structure reflect a balanced choice of relevant actor representing the different end users for the project and the different stakeholders. So for the soil mission, it would be mainly landowners, land managers, environmental NGOs, of course, together with the private and public institutions. You need to build on existing practices and you need also to demonstrate how you're going to facilitate this engagement process between the different actors through workshops, through open discussions organized throughout the whole project durations and beyond. And you need to showcase how your project brings added value, but also brings best practices and recommendation. And of course, how the output of your project would feed in existing dissemination channels to reach the relevant research and innovation, but also the society interested in this thematic. So this was just a brief overview of the requirements on how to successfully implement such approach in your proposal. In the next slide, I move to the next topic. So this topic is focused on the soil biodiversity and how to enhance its potential for healthy cropping systems. And here, please note that it is an innovation action. So the technology readiness level is higher from 6 to 8, and you need to really upscale and demonstrate the solutions developed. In the next slide, you will see a bit some information about the policy context, what are the objectives of the mission soil that are tackled here addressed. And I would like also to mention that the activities of this topic will contribute to the target of the European Biodiversity Strategy by 2030 and the farm and fork strategy on pesticide use reduction, so reducing the use and risk of pesticide by 50% and the use of more hazardous pesticides by 50%. And apart from, so this was only apart from the mentioned here policy frameworks. As for the expected outcomes of your proposals, soil and crop health are expected to be enhanced. We expect also reduced reliance on external inputs via fostering plant-soil synergy and reducing the use of pesticide. And this is mainly possible by implementing integrated pest management practices that consider some environmental aspects as well. And you need also to justify how you could propose some solution with an increased uptake, and how you are going to also recommend some good practices to further foster this sustainable plant and soil health. In the next slide, you see more the detail of these topics in terms of scope, but also the budget available. Here, 2 projects are expected to be funded with a total budget of 16 million euros, so 8 million euro per project. As I mentioned before, it is an innovation action, so you need not only to develop but really test site-specific innovation that promotes soil biodiversity and enhance also plant growth. You need to set up demo sites, and this is the usual thing for innovation action, while considering all the social, economic, and environmental aspects. You need to disseminate the materials from your project and enhance the peer-to-peer learning. And this is further reflected by the fact that multi-actor approach is a requirement for this project. What's interesting here also is the fact that within this topic, you can provide financial support to third parties. So for example, this can be done in the form of grants, and you can attribute, for example, for farmers, for businesses, or civil society representatives, a portion of funding in the form of grant from the bigger funding you got for this project. And it's worth noting that this topic should focus on arable crops, should consider various pedoclimatic zones, and should demonstrate how it would benefit not only organic farming but also the conventional one, without forgetting to aim for a collaboration with other European projects and the European Soil Observatory. So that was it for this topic. Moving to the next one. The next 2 topics are really related to the European regulation for carbon removal certification framework. And here 2 important features to this legislation will be tackled. And the projects are expected to help and achieve baselines, so against which the benefits of carbon removal projects are compared, but also registries, and ideally a European-wide registry for the carbon removal certificates. So for topic 7, the aim is to develop monitoring approaches that are geographically explicit to establish this European level registry for carbon farming, and it is a research and innovation action. So in the next slide, you get to see more details about the policy context, and here of course we are tackling the mission 2 objective, that is conserve and increase soil organic carbon stocks. We are of course addressing some aims of the European Green Deal, the climate law, and most importantly in this context, the EU regulatory framework for the certification of carbon removals that I mentioned earlier. It also touches, of course, the regulation on land use change and forestry. So here, actors from the forestry sector would be really involved, among other policies as well. And your project would aim really to enhance the attractiveness of the carbon farming, not only among farms, so not only the farming sector, but also the forestry ecosystem. And land managers should have better access to information around it. And you need to demonstrate some MRV methods to quantify carbon farming. As I mentioned earlier, you need to set reliable baselines for soil carbon. You need to also generate as output not knowledge that would be very important in shaping the decision making in the LUCF sector. And you need, most importantly, to integrate the market situation and social dimension, and come up with business strategies and digital marketplaces, including, as previously mentioned, a European registry. So in the next slide, you'll get also more details on the specific scope. Here you need to make sure that you are addressing and tackling all the elements of the scope. Two projects will be funded with a total of 23 million euros. And because of the carbon removal scope, you will need to coordinate closely with the expert group on carbon removals. You would need to adapt a multi-actor approach. And here you need to represent and have people working in the forestry sector, farmers also, but also researchers that would address the social and economic impacts, and of course business experts, for you to be able to analyze the best business strategies for certified carbon removals. And we have also left two other topics. Topic 8, that is a research and innovation action focusing on forest peat soils and the best way to manage them. You know that peat soils could be good carbon stores. They accumulate carbon because the waterlogged conditions slow down the decomposition process of organic matter, and this is something that really needs to be addressed if we are thinking about a way to increase soil organic carbon stocks. So in the next slides, you have more information about the policy context. And here again, please, when applying to this call and this topic in particular, you should make reference to all these policies listed here and how your project would contribute to helping shape the policy making. The expected outcomes is, of course, to increase and improve the access to knowledge and data on forest peatlands, their management, and the role of the carbon cycles within the forest peat soils context. You need to also suggest management measures and innovative solution, because it is a research and innovation action, and you need to involve forest manager and policy makers in the participatory design of your project to ensure that they are better informed about the decisions. In the next slide, you'll get to know that only one project will be funded with a budget of 10 million euro. The scope of this topic is, of course, to demonstrate the climate positive and biodiversity relevant forest management on peat soils. You can also focus on the wetting practices. You should also aim to assess the benefits and the environmental impacts of carbon sequestration practices. You need also to propose innovative monitoring techniques, considering both biodiversity and the climate aspects. And you need also to cover remote sensing technologies and field data methods integrating technologies such as artificial intelligence and robotics, and methods to measure the greenhouse gas emissions on related sites and storage. You need also to assess the potential of these demonstrated activities and whether or not these can be replicated and further scaled up. You need to involve as many actors as you can, representing the different backgrounds. And you need, as for the previous topic, to coordinate closely with the expert group on carbon removal and other projects, of course, related to carbon removal and carbon farming. And this leads us to the last topic that would really focus on the assessment of the soil health in Africa. So this topic has a more global dimension because Africa is dealing with serious issues concerning soil health. And this is also one topic to prove that the EU missions also beyond improving the conditions at the European scale have a more global also impact. And you can see in the next slide the policy context for this topic in particular, because the aim would be reducing soil pollution in Africa and enhancing the restoration. It would build on the EU-Africa Partnership on Food Nutrition Security and Sustainable Agriculture, but other African Union initiatives and strategies. And because of the global envergure and context of this topic, you need to properly address the global commitment and the relevant sustainable development goals. And all proposals need to lead to these expected outcomes. So making data accessible, easily accessible for policymakers and intergovernmental organizations to have better informed decision. You need also to deliver improved data sets available at the African level. So it would be ideally by contributing to developing a dashboard for Africa as the available European dashboard. And also the main aim would be enhancing the knowledge that can be used by a wide range of stakeholders to inform soil and land management policies. And you would also need to support the advisory services for farmers in Africa. In the last slide, you have more details on the scope. And for your information, so only one project is expected to be funded with a budget of 7 million euros. It's important also to mention that it's really a centerpiece of this proposal, this Africa-wide soil health dashboard that would include not only short, medium-term plans, but also long-term plans. You need to identify clearly critical local regional thresholds for key soil health descriptors that would apply to the African soil context. And you should justify a strategic, more or less, collection of new data to fill this knowledge gap about the African soil. And you are expected to be supporting the participation of at least 8 African countries in this topic. So these were some details and information on the 7 available calls for proposal beyond the living labs that are research and innovation action and innovation action. Again, same for the living labs. The deadline for submission is set by October, 8th of October 2024. And again, the participant eligibility is broad. All legal entities can apply. If you are interested in one of the presented topic, please don't hesitate to reach out to inquire about more detailed information. So here at Luxinnovation and me, I can further support you from throughout the whole submission journey. And as Mar and Dolinda mentioned, also I can support you with establishing the Living Lab proposals. So don't hesitate to reach out at any time. And thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you for your presentation. Is there any question? We don't have a lot of time, but still, if there is any question, now it's a good moment. Otherwise, we will, of course, share with you all the emails, also to contact Nancy to get specific information and to prepare your proposals. We have also asked in the registration form, if some of you wanted to introduce themselves, take 2 minutes to introduce themselves, to express their interest in applying in one of these topics and to find potential collaborations. And one of the participants who was here today wanted to present himself, but he had an emergency, so he had to leave the meeting, and he asked us to share his message. So his name is Sebastien David from the group SHFC, and their company is based in Grevenmacher, I hope I pronounce it correctly, in Luxembourg, but they also based also in France. And their know-how is to develop alternative plants nutrition solutions to process raw material coming from local agribusiness and premix. So at the moment they're working on microbiologic premix, silicium premix, and they have also a project to work on biochar premix. They did the life cycle assessment of their product, and their carbon footprint is 10 times less than chemical fertilizer. The microorganism used in their formulation can be the key for soil fertility and soil bioremediation. So they might be interested in applying in the topics for living labs. So in case some of you would like to explore the collaboration, we will share the contact detail with them. Adriana, so this is just for question, but also in case you would like to take 2 minutes to introduce themselves, this is a good moment. So Adriana, yes?
Yes, it would be just a second. Good morning, my name is Adriana. I am the CEO of EcoCitizen. We're based in Luxembourg. Our chairman of the board has written a book about forestry in Luxembourg, past, present, and future. So we are focusing on forestry mainly. We work with data-driven technologies and information, and we'll be very happy to find potential partners because I think pretty much we align to what we have discussed here, and also we implement remote sensing technologies, ground truthing technologies, etc. So I'm pretty sure we can find good opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, you will be able to reach to Adriana when we share the contact details. And so I don't see any other hand raised. So we can conclude the meeting with the final information. I'm going to share the screen. Voila. Okay. So I leave the floor to Mar.
Thanks, Linda. So for this final remarks and conclusion, we'll now break down each of the stages into smaller steps and introduce the tools and documents that are at your disposal. In the first phase, you identify the soil health challenges. Next slide, please. So in this first phase, you identify the soil health challenges you want to address in your region and in your land use in a living lab. You need to link these soil health challenges with the soil mission objectives, because the activities in your living lab should help reach those objectives. To learn more about the soil mission objectives, you can check the soil mission implementation plan and some thematic events that elaborate on the content of today's national engagement event or focus on different soil objectives and land use types are available in the NATI00NS homepage or bar following the QR on the slide. We also want to highlight that the work done by PrepSoil and another European projects to promote the European Soil Mission. They made, among others, a European soil needs assessment at a regional scale. This work resulted in 2 items which are worth to be consulted: a booklet of posters and a report on the synthesis of soil needs and drivers of change across European and land use types. In the next slide, we'll find that PrEP soil had, among others, the aim to identify the soil health needs in 20 representative regions across Europe for different land use types, anywhere on the spectrum from including agriculture, nature, forest, and urban or industrial. This assessment is extremely relevant for the topics of the living labs, as they call request multiple living labs in several countries that address the same or similar land use types, with a clear rationale for collaboration. From this requirement, it follows that it is crucial to be aware of the similarities and differences of soil health across regions and across land uses. In the next slide, we'll find an example of such poster. It includes regional or national information on the land use, climate, soil type, and threats on the left that you can see on the left side hand. This is an example of the information you can find within the soil needs assessment. In the next slide, please. So here, as you can see, it's more a detailed view of what kind of information you can find in this soil needs assessment, and we encourage you to take a look in the specifics ones that you're interested. In the next slide, we can find that there has been a comparable study within the project within the European Joint Program, EGP, and soil to identify soil needs for agricultural sector alone. This figure shows a summary of the survey among researchers and stakeholders. What we see is that some challenges are present in almost every country of the investigation, such as soil organic carbon. Similar overarching soil needs between regions do not necessarily have to deal with similar underlying problems. Other challenges differ between regions, such as the columns, salinization, contamination, and structure. Differences in soil needs can be due to many reasons. For example, due to the differences in soil types, climate, management, or political and social conditions. This assessment for agriculture and the PrEP soil needs assessment I showed just before are not just relevant in defining your soil health issues and the soil mission objectives. They can also be used in the next 2 stages, initiating or joining a living lab and establishing an international consortium. For the soil mission, knowledge of which soil challenges are pressing in which areas is important. This mission revolves around the collaboration across land use and regions. In the next slide, we'll find the next step. So once you have the pressing soil challenge that you want to work in, you need to find associates for the information of the living lab. For this, you need to identify a variety of stakeholders that you may need to overcome with your soil challenges. Think critically and creatively about which stakeholders you may need for what reasons. At this stage, understanding the living lab methodology and the living lab criteria set out by the European Union is crucial. On NATi00NS homepage, you can find a webinar series on living lab essentials, how to set up a living lab, and on core elements and specificities of the living lab topics. Moreover, also at NATi00NS homepage, you can find the overview of the national mentors. Like we've mentioned before, Nancy is a national mentor for Luxembourg. These mentors enable you to organize ideas around specific soil health challenges and at a regional level, and advise you on how to go through the initial phases and establish the living lab. So when you're negotiating your living lab, it's important to make sure that the guidelines and engage different stakeholders agree on your focus in terms of which soil health challenges, which mission soil objectives, and which land use types. And it is also important to agree on the organization of your living lab and then distribution of responsibilities. In the next slide, we'll find exactly. So next, with the partners of your living lab, you need to find other living labs to collaborate with, to form a consortium that will apply to living labs topics under the soil mission call. Mind the restriction on the locations of living labs. You need to engage multiple living labs in at least 3 member states or associated countries. One of the tools we provide here is the matchmaking platform. In this platform, you can reach out to meet potential project partners from the creation of cross-regional or transnational clusters of living labs. You have the opportunity to schedule meetings with potential project partners by browsing through the participants' profiles and findings those relevant for you to collaborate with. There are over 500 participants from over 40 countries registered. When you sign up and create a good profile, it will increase your chances of joining a living lab and a consortium. The people involved in already established networks also have the opportunity to browse the profile and invite you for meetings. In this stage, the thematic events organized by the NATi00NS could also be helpful. Some of the thematic events are aimed at encouraging networking and collaborating on transnational scale. For upcoming and past events, check the homepage at NATi00NS.eu. NATi00NS also keeps track of questions and answers for those who are interested on the EU Soul mission, the calls topic and application process. NATi00NS help desk is also at your disposal. Finally, make sure you agree on a joint rationale when you form the consortium. What is the focus of your application? What made the selection of the living labs? And what is driving the construction of your consortium? Next slide, please. So when you reach stage 4, you have come a long way. At this stage, your goal is submitting your application, which starts by drafting the application. By now, you have established a clear line of thought on individual living labs and the connection between these living labs. You also know which stakeholders and partners are gathered and for which reason. You know their roles in their consortium. It is important to remember to identify the status of the soil health challenges, meaning to provide a baseline that will be used to compare your results. Also, it is important to provide a rationale for the need of the participatory research. Describe what knowledge and which solutions may already exist to help you, and in which soil challenges, or why the knowledge and solutions do not apply to your situation. Make sure to comply the Horizon Europe work program and topic task. NATi00NS provides a general information on the call, the topics, and reflects the information given by the European Union as good as possible. However, the official source of reference is the Horizon Work Program 2023-2025, published by the European Commission on the 17th of April of this year. Don't forget to consult all the information mentioned before. Think of the fact sheets and the webinars available online. They include a lot of information, among others, on Living Labs methodology. Make sure to make use of the matchmaking platform, converse with your mentors and or national contact points, and don't forget to consult the questions and answer page. Is your specific question not listed yet, or do you need additional help? Know that NATi00NS has a help desk tool that I mentioned before to request specific support on issues related to the mission. As for the next slide, please. So NATi00NS is here to support you in your further application process, and we provide different phases and support at different stages of the application. First of all, we have the engagement events, such as today, to inform and engage and promote. Then we have the matchmaking platform, which facilitates the creation of local living labs and consortiums. Then we have the fact sheets that I mentioned, which aim to provide further information on the living labs, the open calls, and the different land use types. Then we have the online help desk and questions and answers part, which will support answering your questions. We have further webinars on living labs methodology and developing and enlarging those living labs. We have coaching support. And finally, we have thematic events and webinars on different things for specific land uses. And this international and thematic matchmaking, which facilitates the creation of partnerships in living labs. You can also contact the mentors to schedule individual coaching sessions where you can pitch your ideas and receive initial feedback on the idea in relation to the call scope, evaluation criteria, and as well as advice tailored to the applicant's circumstances. For this, you can also contact Nancy, which is here in their meeting today. NATi00NS also provides this matchmaking tool that we just mentioned. capacity building webinars, and others. As for the upcoming events, we have this matchmaking event, which aims to facilitate the creation of translational consortia, which will take place on the 11th and 12th of June. You can register through our website. And we also have some upcoming capacity building webinars on different topics. In the 18th of June of this year, we'll explain the Soul Mission funding opportunities for Soul Health Living Labs based on the 2024 calls. On the 20th of June, you'll find another webinar on forestry and semi-natural lands, focusing on the Balkans and neighboring countries. And on the 25th of June, we'll have a webinar focusing on co-creation methodologies for urban and post-industrial living labs. It is important to also mention that there are other webinars coming and that we would like you to join, as we believe that these tools are really valuable. And for this, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that this presentation was insightful.
Okay, thank you for being here today, and we remain at your disposal for any questions. You will receive the slides and all the links in the follow-up email. And we invite you also to fill up the feedback form to understand how to improve the event and what needs to be clarified. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
You,
Bye.